Pat, no.
Oh, that's right. Uh-oh.
We have a quorum.
Not,
No, 7. There's 7.
hello. Here's Martin, here's Martin, here we go. Let's
Martin, the
see.
meetings, hey, Martin, the meetings are going back to 8 o'clock.
Okay,
Yeah, we're all done.
we're going to start while everyone's futzing around here and call roll. Diana's in the...
Diana's.
Good morning, everybody. This is the, December 3rd. It's awfully loud, I think. 2014 Historic Resources Board in City of Palo Alto in California. I can drag on if needed. Roll call. I guess one of you could take call roll.
Sure. We have Chair Kohler,
Here?
Vice Chair McKinnon,
Here.
and Member Bernstein,
Here.
Bauer,
Here.
Chico?
Pat DeCiccio.
I'm sorry. Absent. Bunnenberg? Here. And Wimmer,
Great.
who's here but is about to present, so is...
And Margaret's here, too.
Margaret Wimmer, yes.
Do I have any oral communications? Is there anyone here who'd like to speak to an item? Not on the list. Any
So
agenda-
just to put a point on that, Margaret is recused from being a board member on this item
That's
because
correct.
she needs to present as a sole proprietor of
That's
the
correct.
project. Yeah.
And we're
Okay.
going to verify that that's okay with the attorneys?
Oh, no, it doesn't need to be verified. We know it's okay. It's just
Okay.
for the record.
Martin did it, so.
Yeah, but when I first started, we couldn't, I had to get an employee to talk.
Yeah, you have employees, she doesn't.
Okay, great. I don't see any oral communicating people. So any agenda changes or deletions? Apparently not. Okay. We don't have any minutes to approve, so,
That's correct, no minutes.
okay. So,
We have a subcommittee meeting today.
well, yeah, let's just check to the, beyond to the, there's no subcommittee meetings today?
That's correct, no subcommittee.
Okay. Do you want to do any board staff announcements at the moment? Is there anything like that coming up while we're waiting?
Well, I think after this item 1, Margaret can unrecuse herself and join the board again
That's true.
for this.
She can. I'm just filling the air here, so. Well, I'll tell you what, while they're getting ready, we will start the item number 1, which is 251 Lincoln Avenue. This is a request by Margaret Wimmer on behalf of Donna and Harry Schmidt for Historic Resources Board review and recommendation regarding proposed alterations and additions to a residence initially constructed in 2003 that is listed on the city's historic inventory in Category 4 and located in the Professorville Historic District. That is one long sentence. The project is subject to the regulations of the Single Family Individual Review, IR, process. Environmental assessment, categorically exempt from the provision of CEQA, Section 15331, Zoning District R1. This item was continued from the meeting of November 19, 2014. Does staff have any comments about this project while we're waiting?
Christy Fong is here to present the item. I think it wasn't presented last time due to the lack of quorum, so we'll let her present as the planner. Christy Fung, the project
Okay,
planner.
Yeah, all right. Okay, why don't you go ahead and start?
Thank you for the introduction, Chair. In addition to the HRB review, the project at 251 Lincoln Avenue is subject to individual review due to the proposed new window at the second level. 2 requests for home improvement exemptions are made. The first one being a setback encroachment to allow the primary building and proposed basement to encroach up to 4 feet into front yard setback, where current zoning require 20 feet, and the existing building has 9 feet setback for Ramona Street. The second exemptions being the allowance of 250 square feet of floor area in excess of what is allowed on the site, provided that the request additions would be in substantial conformance with the Secretaries of Interior standards for rehabilitation. The provisions of California Environmental Quality Act require a discretionary historic project to comply with the secondary standard before the issuance of a building permit. The HRB does not specifically review and recommend on the findings for the home improvement exemptions and individual review, but to determine whether the proposal that incorporates the HIE and the IR conforms to the secondary standard. Staff recommends that the HRB review the project with respect to the secondary standard and recommends that the Director of Planning and Community Environment conditionally approve the project based on the findings in Attachment A and subject to the conditions of approval in Attachment B of the staff report. That concludes the introductions.
I have a quick question. Okay, Martin?
I have a
Just
question
quickly, the HIE, normally the HIE, what is the maximum allowable floor area under an HIE request?
Let's see, if it's a category 1 or 2, I believe we allow up to 200 square feet. I can double check that.
Yeah,
250, as I recall.
250?
so
Okay,
that is the,
sorry.
that is the
Should rely on
maximum.
my technical expertise of staff. It's 250.
Because like a normal HIE is like,
100
Yeah.
is what the maximum
I
HIE would
see.
be for non-historic.
so, but
property.
historics get this little extra bonus.
Yes.
They can request that, yes, and still be within the home improvement exception as opposed to variance.
But the condition is the addition has to be in compliance with the secondary standard.
Okay,
That's for category 1 and 2,
No, that's for historic buildings with categories.
which is,
I believe the total square footage that can be added to a historic category 1 or 2 is the 250. I believe if it's category 3 or 4, but I could be corrected as well. I can check that. 3 or 4, I think, is only 100.
that, I didn't, 3 or 4 are not allowed the 250, but a smaller number?
Oh, is it?
Excuse me, Chair.
Okay,
My understanding of the,
I'm sorry. You know what? I'm gonna stop trying to answer questions and let the staff answer. The staff confirm that categories 1 through 4, all
Yes.
4 categories are allotted 250. And you,
I agree with the statement just made, is that my understanding of the ordinance is any historically listed property is allowed to apply for up to 250 square feet. Yeah.
That's correct.
that's actually a note that somehow should be made a little clearer.
It's in
For-
Chapter 18. So.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
but it's buried in Chapter 18 somewhere, somehow, you ought to make it better known for people that, you know, having a historic home is a huge benefit. Anyway, okay, you are done, Martin?
I have a question,
Okay.
please. Okay. Thank you, Chair Kohler. And Christy, thank you. On your staff report, on page, starting on attachment A, you're the author of the attachment A? Is that okay? You're the author of attachment A? Attachment A is, let me see if there's a page number. I don't see a page number on attachment A, so, but you're the author.
So this attachment A,
Yeah.
the finding is prepared with me and with the advice from Arnold,
Okay, yeah.
who is also dealing with the IR process.
Okay, thank you. On the, at the start on, well, there's no page number. We'll assume it's page number 8 on our report, even though there's no page number. It says project consistency with Secretary of Interior standards, or 10 standards. And comment and proposed project is rated for each standard as compliant, marginally compliant, or non-compliant. What is your recommendation for standard 9? See, every standard has a conclusion from staff if it's compliant, marginally compliant, or non-compliant. What is your recommendation for standard 9? I don't see that listed on standard 9, whether it's compliant from your point of view of marginally compliant or not compliant.
Well, the conclusions out of that session is the project is in compliance with standard line.
Okay, and standard 9 includes the idea of differentiation. So you conclude that this proposed project meets that standard, is compliant with that?
Yeah, that is in the discussions.
Okay, thank you for that. That's my only question for now.
Roger.
Yes.
And in addition, this is in the Professorville National Historic Register District, and this address is called out in the list of contributors, so that's an extra layer of.
Okay. David, do you have any comments or questions? Just getting back to what you were talking to Martin. So you went through each of these items and have made a recommendation. And usually number 9 is one of the more trickier of them. You feel comfortable in this recommendation that there's definition between old and new?
So we went through different versions of the design with the architect here, and I'm sure it will be covered in her presentations in terms of the changes that we make throughout the design development process. One thing that we come into consensus at the end is the roof forms, which is also included as the discussions in the staff report. There's different alternatives that the applicant is proposing, and we found that the one that is selected in the final plan is appropriate, and it's going to be consistent with the historic defining features of the house, which is a permanent roof. So I guess the applicants can provide more details on that regards.
So those roof options weren't included in this book?
Yes, it is included.
They
What
are.
page?
They are.
What page? I guess I missed it. Okay, I'm seeing, yeah.
It is in sheet.
I now remember seeing that, but I,
Oh, it is in 8.4.2.
on A 4.2,
Starting there.
okay, well, I mean,
And then A 4.4 has another drawings showing that. So the difference between the options is the first one is the introductions of a wedge, which will change the permanent form from the street side, whereas the options that it's finally agreed on is the one that will maintain the permanent sign forms from the street fields.
okay. All right, well, why don't we, no other comments? We'll have the applicant presentation, correct? Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good morning. Am I on?
You should state your name and everything for the
Yes.
record.
My name is Margaret Wimmer, and I am working with the Schmidt family, who is here in the audience today to join us for this
Turn this.
presentation. And they are the current owners of 251 Lincoln Avenue, which is on the corner of Lincoln and Ramona Street in historic Professorville in Palo Alto. And the owners wish to not only update the house, but they want to expand the livability of the house and also update the house. And one of the reasons why they purchased the home, because they love the historic character and they love all the details, and they really would like to bring the house back to its glory in terms of renovating it and improving upon what's there. And they're very anxious to get going on doing that. Sure.
Could I interrupt for just a second, staff? Hello? We're not getting the pictures on our TVs.
Oh, okay. Can you check in with IT?
We just get welcome to the city, Palo Alto.
Yeah, that gets old.
They're not fixing on their monitors. Yeah. Is it going up here?
Where's the sky? I don't see a sky.
So maybe while we get the technical difficulty resolved.
Okay.
Perhaps I can take the opportunity to, while we wait for the technical glitch to be solved, to go back and address the earlier comment. So I'd like to read from the code. I was correct in a sense in that Category 3 and 4 residences that aren't in Professorville would not be eligible for this additional square footage. What it says exactly is this. It's Chapter 18, Section 1812.120. And we do provide this on our checklist for submittals, so people can readily see that we have this availability. And it talks about Category 1 or 2 historic structures, as defined in Chapter 1649, and then also any contributing structure within a locally designated historic district. Okay, so which would not otherwise be accomplished through the strict application of the regulations. So that's the distinction, is it's a Professorville home.
I guess you can continue while we're trying to get this
Okay.
resolved. So, okay. We have our drawings we can look at, I suppose.
Or we could look at that.
Yes, we could actually turn our heads and look up there. Okay, why don't you do that? Let's move forward.
So it's a 1903 historic property, and thank you. You can go to the next, yeah. So this slide shows some of the character defining features of the existing house. There's a prominent front entry gable, which is in the lower left photo with an expanse of windows that wrap around that. It's like a sunroom. And it has also a pyramid roof on the second floor. That's the main geometry of the pyramid roof. It has really wonderful architectural detailing below the windows on the second floor. There's also a frieze band on the top as it transfers into the roof overhang, as well as at the foundation. So there's some horizontal trim bands that wrap around the house that define it, and also wood shingling. And I will note here, and I know this issue might come up with the existing materials. We've discovered that there's a lot of termites and things that happen over time when previous owners might not have maintained the house as well as we would like to see. So in terms of trying to preserve and reuse materials, it's, we are approaching the project with that spirit, but we do know upon just surface investigation that a lot of the existing shingling is pretty worn and in bad shape. And I think on our materials board, we have some, I brought in some shingles showing the existing conditions of them. But so I think when it comes time to that, the contractor's going to be able to decipher what can be maintained. We absolutely will keep the windows and restore those. So another challenge on this project is how it's placed on the existing site. On the Ramona side, which is considered the front, the house is only approximately 9 feet from the property line, where a 20-foot setback is required. Also, if you can see in this slide, there's 2 shaded areas. There's a detached cottage, and then there's also an addition that was done to the existing house. Those are shaded in this slide. And those 2 areas we have discovered are not historic, and they're non-conforming. The shaded area that's connected to the house is only a foot from the property line, where a 6-foot setback is required. You can't even walk between the structure and the neighboring fence. So we propose to remove that. It's a slab on grade with a flat roof, so it doesn't even look anything. I mean, it's not characteristic of the historic structure. And the detached cottage is 228 square feet. That also is non-conforming. It's only a foot from the property line. It's in a state of disrepair. We feel like could potentially be dangerous, so we've closed that off, and we're planning to remove that. And these are just photos showing the non-conforming areas. On the left slide, that's facing Ramona Street. You can see how close it is to the property line. And that's a slab on grade structure. It's flat roofed. It's not even at the same floor level as the main house. You have to step down onto this. It must have been like an entry service porch or something. And there again, you can see the detached cottage that's also non-conforming. We're planning to, but we're going to keep the detached garage. So this is the proposed site. So this is showing how we've removed the non-conforming structures. We've allowed the side yard. It complies to the 6 feet side yard, interior side yard setback. What we're proposing to do is actually move the house 7 feet away from the Ramona front. And our reasoning for doing that, with adding, we're proposing to add a basement, a full basement to the project. And so because the existing house is placed in a non-conforming location, we aren't able to put the basement under the house in its non-conforming location. So the basement has to comply with the setback, although we've applied for an HIE exception so that we can push the basement structure 4 feet into that front setback. So what we're proposing to do is lift up the existing house and put it on top of the basement, as the basement is 4 feet into the front setback. So the new setback on the Ramona side will be 16 feet. As you can see, this is a photo of the Ramona side, and there's very little front yard. Right now it's only 9 feet from the property line. So we feel like this will improve the street frontage on Ramona Street. All the other houses comply to a 20-foot setback there. We're not going to be quite 20 feet, we'll be 16 feet, but that will give a more generous yard there between the sidewalk and the structure. So this is a photograph of the existing front elevation, which is really the Lincoln side. It's a little confusing. But we consider this the front elevation because this is how we enter the house, and this has the most prominent street frontage. We see the prominent front gable. We see a 2-story bay window element, pyramid roof. So I want to just speak for a moment. Amy, if you can go back to the slide, just one slide before this. So there have been some additions to the original house, and we believe that the two-story bay window element and the second-story master sitting room was an addition to the original house. We see that pyramid roof, and we can see how the shingling on the front has a distinct vertical seam in it. So that's giving us clues that was an addition at one time. When we get into talking about the composition of the roof that we're proposing, and in trying to keep the original pyramid roof, it's been a bit of a challenge simply because this addition that was done, it doesn't really relate to the pyramid roof. So the pyramid roof element is there. However, with the addition of the living room and the second floor room above it, there was no regard to the geometry of the house. I mean, the geometry of the roof still exists from the existing house. However, with the continuation of that exterior wall, there's no relationship now between the pyramid roof and the floors below it. And the roofing that's done over the second floor master sitting room is just a flat roof. As you can see, it's a little hard to see just because of the perspective, but where that on the left side, that's a flat roof over the master. So what I'm trying to say is, well, I'll get to it when we get to our proposal, so we can go to the next slide. This is just another photo of the front, so you can see a little bit more of the features of the front. And this is a front elevation of how it's existing. So we see the pyramid roof there in that perspective. We see the prominent front entry gable, and we also see the flat roof portion over that second floor area, and that clearly was an addition at one time. The quality of that room is, you have to step up into it. You can tell that the prior owner just filled it in with aluminum windows. The windows aren't even squared to the frames. It could possibly have been some kind of a porch at one time that they enclosed with a series of windows. And so this is our proposed elevation. So the differences here are we really want to upgrade that room on the master. So by doing that, we really need an appropriate roof that will allow a vaulted ceiling on the interior. And so this is what we have we're proposing. And in the front, where there's that two-story bay window, in order to properly roof that, with this solution, we're just extending a shed roof over that second-story bay. So we're trying to keep the pyramid roof as an architectural element, but with the way that we're proposing to roof the sort of that wing, this is how that appears. Another thing we're proposing is a front entry that's incorporated underneath the existing gable. There's a house across the street that's considered the sister house, and this is similar to the way that they enter that house. This is an alternative elevation that we've studied, and this is maybe what you were looking for in the packet, some of the alternatives. So this has some of the features that we had originally come up with. We wanted to maintain the prominent front gable and have that as a sunroom. And then we wanted to add a new front entry with a new entry feature that gives it a more prominent feeling and just a sort of a more welcoming experience from that Lincoln elevation. On this elevation, we're showing a gable over the two-story bay window, and the detailing of that gable replicates the prominent front entry gable, has the same detailing on that. And the roof form on this has changed simply because we are expanding the second floor. So this is really a better roof solution in terms of building standards, and when we get to the rear elevation, I'll show you why. This is what I'm calling a stretched pyramid roof solution. It doesn't have the point, but we're pulling it and making it, there's a ridge on the top, and maybe if we go to the next slide, we can see. This is a variation of the pyramid roof, the original pyramid roof, the shed roof over the two-story bay window, but this shows a new entry feature. This is the Ramona front elevation, so we're pushing this further away from the Ramona property line by 7 feet. This is the existing. You can see the flat non-conforming structure to the right that we're proposing to remove. And then the next slide is our proposed front elevation, where this is the elevation that's the least impacted. We're keeping a side entry door on that elevation, and then beyond the door, there's just a little dining room bay that we'll see on another slide. So this is the rear elevation. So you can see the flat roof. You can see the existing geometry of the structure, and this is a line drawing of that rear elevation, showing the pyramid roof, showing the flat roof over the second story, showing the non-conforming area that we're proposing to remove on the left. And this is our proposed rear elevation. So you see the introduction of a new roof over that second story that's creating that roof geometry that you can see from Lincoln. So there is an addition to the master bedroom, and that's on the left. Amy, if you can go back one slide, yeah. So if you see under the main pyramid, the 3 windows on the second floor, but on the left. So in order to maintain the pyramid roof, the addition there has to have a flat roof over it. So you see above the 3 windows on the second story on the left, there's sort of a solid frieze band with a flat roof above it, exactly, right there. So this is the consequence of keeping the pyramid roof. We wouldn't be able to pull the roof over that addition on the second floor. We're just having to come up with an alternate roof solution. So a flat roof is the current solution that we're looking at, which is required if we are keeping the pyramid roof. We still need to pull a roof over that addition. However, to keep the pyramid roof, we have to sort of cheat in a flat roof over it. This is a solution. We're willing to go this route. It's not the most ideal solution because it doesn't really allow the interior space to have a vaulted ceiling, and it just, whenever you have a pitched roof and then you transfer it to a flat roof, there's inevitably problems in the future with building it. Obviously, we're going to do the best job we can, but it's just not ideal in terms of an overall roof solution. But the next slide shows how we're stretching the pyramid this way to accommodate the second floor addition. So it's just a continuous roof geometry. This is a better solution in terms of building. It might not be the better solution in terms of the historic nature of the house. So This is the interior side, which is really difficult to see because this is setting right against the fence. But this is a line drawing of the existing interior side. And then this is what we're proposing. So in this elevation, this is maintaining the pyramid roof. You see the little flat area above the addition. And then you see the new roof over the 2-story bedroom wing. This also showing the dining room addition. There's a family dining area off the kitchen, and that has a gable roof over it on the first floor. And there we're replicating the detailing of the prominent gable that faces the front, that faces the Lincoln elevation. So we've pulled those historic details onto this elevation. And this is, again, showing how we want to roof that second floor master bedroom addition with the stretched pyramid concept. So this slide is kind of the most articulate in the sense that it really kind of shows the 2 roof solutions, one with the flat roof at the second floor addition and one with the sloped roof. Hopefully that's clear. This is just showing the basement plan that we're proposing. Again, the basement, the limit of the basement is pushing it 4 feet into the front setback, and that's where we've placed it. And then we're proposing to lift the existing house, excavating that basement, and then placing the existing house over the foundation of the basement. And so this is showing the 2 shaded areas on this plan is showing where the additions will occur to the first floor plan. And the next slide shows, it's a lighter shade, sorry, it's lighter shaded color, but the shaded area is showing the addition on the second floor, and that's the area that we're discussing the roof options. This is the roof plan. So this is also articulating the 2 roof options. One is the one on the right is keeping the pyramid roof with a flat roof over the master addition. The one on the left is stretching that pyramid and introducing a slightly different roof composition. And then this is just to talk about the neighborhood context. I know that when we alter the location of the house, there's sensitive neighbors that want to be sure that their privacy is maintained. We're only moving the house 7 feet. So we've been in touch with the neighbor, and maybe in the next slides I can show you the existing. These are photos from the windows on the second floor, and you can see that they're existing, there is a exposure to the neighbor that's existing. Moving at 7 feet may or may not make a big impact. What we can do is, you can go to the next slide. This is also looking towards the neighboring, that's the neighbor on Ramona Street. We can propose to do windows with that are obscure. We're willing to do that with the new windows on that second floor. But with those slides, I'm just trying to show that there already is clear exposure to the neighbor. We are proposing to, where we're taking down the cottage, we'll put some plant material, some trees or some screening or something to offer some privacy between the 2 properties. Of course, that takes time to fully experience, but that's our current proposal. And then also, going a little bit further, there's these are just photos. In prior planning meetings, we discovered that our house has a sister house, which is right across the street, and it faces Ramona. And I just took some photos of this just because it's a reference. And this is showing how there's a front entry gable, and the front entry is incorporated into that front entry gable. So that was justifying one of our proposals of doing that. This is just some additional photographs of the house. So, so I think maybe I'll just let you digest that, and then ask me any questions, and that's kind of our general presentation.
Yes, I was just looking for our little guide as to what is next. I think we,
Questions?
do we have questions now or to hear from, okay.
Questions about
Okay. I guess I should disclose that when the home was for sale, I walked through it with some potential buyers, so I had inside experience with it, with the whole home. We'll just start with,
I should disclose that I've visited the site several times and walked up into the property once I knew it was totally vacant.
yeah, I guess I ought to disclose that. A week or two ago, I just went by with my dogs and took pictures from the outside of this site as well, again.
Yes, I've been through the house also.
Yes, I also disclose where the house for sale went to the open house also. Thank you.
I didn't go through the house. I certainly visited the site and walked around it. So it looks like we all are pretty familiar with the building and the project site.
And then the house across the street has been totally gutted and remodeled with no, not coming before the board, just to let you know. But, okay. Questions? Anyone have any? Go ahead.
I have several questions and some concerns. First of all, in terms of moving the house, is it going to be kept in one piece and moved, or will it be, as has happened in many instances, cut up into sections and hardly looks like a house anymore?
Yes, we actually have done some investigation in terms of that. We are keeping the entire house intact. So what happens is the people who lift and move the house, they have these rather large steel I-beams that go under the house and lift it and move it out of the way so we can do the excavation, and then it moves back. We do have a letter from the movers that we're contracting with to lift and move the house, and there will be a structural shoring plan to show how the house is going to be structurally protected during this move. And so that's a whole layer of information that we actually have been working on, but our house mover has assured us that by lifting and relocating the house will not suffer any structural damage, and none of the historic character of the house will be lost. When this house actually is remarkably structurally well built. The floor joists, the ceiling joists, the floor between the first and second floor, the framing is much larger than we had anticipated. The floor joists are like 2x12s when they could be 2x8. So structurally, it's a pretty well-built house to begin with. So that will help us in maintaining the structural integrity of it during the move and during the relocation.
And it was a fairly expensive house for the era, and they used bigger timber lots of times.
Yeah.
Now then, I have some concerns about the retention of some historic materials. Mm-hmm. Now, the sunroom, your proposal is to demolish one window, remove one window, and I'm concerned about that, and also about there's dental molding up at the very top. It's kind of a frieze all across that and around toward the proposed new front door. All that sunroom seems to have that. Are you going to demolish that wall that has the windows and frieze on the entry?
Well, our original approach was to fill in that void where there's the prominent gable and there's an overhang section of it we were going to fill that in and then put the new front entry on the wall to the left of it. So we wouldn't be removing anything. With the newer, maybe I can go back to that slide. With the newer proposal, so originally we were going to maintain that sunroom, but with the suggestion that we put the front door, incorporate the front door entry within that front entry gable. There's only there's roughly like 3.5 feet right there. So maybe the one before that, Amy. There's roughly 3.5 feet between, maybe one before that. There's roughly 3.5 feet. See, there's the post on the left and then the windows on the right, and with the door in between. With the existing conditions, there's only like 3 to 3.5 feet. So to put a door, we have been studying with just a single 3-foot door, so we don't have to touch. We keep the existing shape of that sunroom, the existing windows. We like the door entry on that Lincoln-facing wall. Right now, the entry to the house, you go into the sunroom, and then you go into the house. It's definitely the sunroom is like it's an enclosed room, and then there's in fact another entry door into the geometry of the house. So you're actually going through 2 doors. You're going into the door to the sunroom and then into a door to the house. So we were trying to simplify that and have a more. We like the idea of having the entry door facing Lincoln. With this drawing here, it's showing a door with side lights. I think we're studying taking the side lights away, having a single door, so that we can try to keep the existing condition of that front entry. It just seems a little narrow. It's not really giving us the prominent front entry that we're looking for, but does that answer your question? Oh, no, we're keeping all the dentling and there's actually some really wonderfully carved corbels that support that overhang. All that will be maintained, absolutely. We're not getting rid of the detailing. This elevation does, however, show the removal of a window, because we need a little bit more space for that entry door feature.
And would you still be accepting of the other proposal that had the
single door?
The shed had a roof over the door that leaves the sunroom intact?
Yes, in fact, that was our original desire, to have this elevation.
Board members, if I may address that point, Matt Weintraub, planning staff. We identified several character-defining features of the existing property. One of those features is the entry pediment and enclosed porch that has the integrated main entrance with that. So the main entrance is not a separate feature. That's something that's both with this house as well as its sibling, which is across the street. So we asked the applicant to consider, when making the changes, rather than adding a new entrance to the facade, but keeping the main entrance integrated with that sunroom feature. So that's why you see this particular proposal resulting in the removal of an existing window. Is the intention is to keep that entrance underneath that gable, which is essentially a historic feature, character-defining feature, rather than adding a new entrance somewhere else on the facade.
But another way of looking at it might be that it in some ways destroys the formal balance that that existed when those windows were in place. So that, you know, there are differing viewpoints on that.
Some other options that could be considered are to enclose that area, but shift the entrance around to the side wall, which is not the applicant's preference, I don't believe, but that is something that could be looked at. Also reconfiguring the windows entirely at the front to allow for a more balanced, but that would involve, again, more work. A third option is to allow for an entrance to be added somewhere else to the facade, but to make it a very low-key feature so that it doesn't create a new prominent feature that doesn't currently exist. So those are just some alternatives that might be discussed.
All right. What was the rationale for adding the oval window over that sun porch?
Well, so that gable attic area is actually accessible to the bedroom right behind it. And there's an existing access door to that attic. And our clients have a child and thought that would be just a really fun little playroom. And we wanted to add some light in there. And it just has a lot of character, and we just thought it would be just that
little sun porch has an attic?
There's an attic that in that triangular area, that's an attic space that's accessed by the bedroom behind it. And it's just a cute little opportunity for a kid to have.
Nook.
Yeah, a little reading nook or a little cute fort or whatever. So we just thought putting an architectural feature window would add light in there and kids could look out.
All right, I think those are my questions.
Just going down.
Yeah, sure.
Margaret, I had a couple of questions. Actually, let me start with staff. In the discussion that Martin was referring to when we began the S9 section, there is a reference to a curb on the skylight should be minimized, but I can't see a skylight on the plans.
Oh,
Is it, where am I missing it? Where's the roof plan?
If you can see the sections,
I see it.
okay.
I see it now on the roof plan. It's not on any of the elevations, so that's why I was wondering. There's a note in there about making sure the skylight glass is the same color as the roof. I'm not aware that any standard Velux unit, which is what everyone uses, would even have a glass option in color. And certainly that's not something I would hope the board would encourage or enforce, because these skylights just disappear. I don't have any issue with moving the house. I think this is going to make the building feel better in the neighborhood. It doesn't have any impact on the rear neighbor. Who's doing the moving?
Kelly Brothers.
Okay, well, they've only been doing it for 109 years, so
Yeah.
they might know what they're doing. Roger and I remodeled a house on Emerson in Professorville that they stabilized while we dug a basement underneath it. Never moved the house an inch, so they know what they're doing. They do this all the time.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about, I'm reluctant to become an architect as a board member, but what I noticed on the side elevation is that the eating area addition, gable end, seems to be larger and more present than maybe it needs to be. And so on page of your drawing, it is A4.3. It seems to me it might look better if that was smaller, as I see it in the face-on elevation, even though that's a side view that no one can easily see. You do see it from the front Ramona Street elevation.
Yeah, I think it comes out roughly 4 feet from,
Right. It just seems to me to be a little more prominent, and then maybe it has to. And if instead of a gable end, it had a hipped roof like the pyramid, it might be less obvious, and then also just quieter. But that's something for you to consider.
okay.
The issue about differentiation of the windows, the new and the old, staff report said that the 4 windows would be an atypical configuration. And I don't disagree with that. But as I see these windows drawn, they have the same, they're actually drawn in a manner that would suggest that they would have sash balances, sash weights. So between each of the windows, there'd be about a 5-inch vertical piece of trim. I would think that, first of all, to create that is a lot more expensive. If you buy a manufactured window from Marvin, Jolwyn, or any of them, they would come with very narrow, just basically put together, attached without that space. And while it's the same 4-window look, except for professionals, architects, historians, that would be lost on the general public, but it would differentiate those 4-gang windows as clearly new, and that might be a consideration. I think that would be a clearer differentiation than the rest.
So you're talking about specifically the master bedroom on the second floor, the master bedroom addition windows?
Sorry?
You're talking specifically about the master bedrooms where we put the windows together on the,
Well, it's on the rear elevation.
on the rear elevation?
There's on the rear elevation, and then on the, right.
There are some front and then some on this elevation as well.
Right, I think any place that 4 windows occur together, and it's only on the rear, isn't it?
I believe so.
It's just a suggestion, because I think it makes it very much clearer to
Okay.
those of us that actually care about this. I like your proposed rear elevation where the, excuse me, the addition that's replacing that sun porch on the back is actually lowered better than the one that integrates the roofs, because I think that also differentiates it. It holds that pyramid shape better. I understand the difficulty of
Yeah.
then configuring the bedroom, and I'm sympathetic but not overwhelmed by that.
Okay.
When it comes to replacing shingles, I think the issue for us as a board is that the character-defining feature is the material, the shingle, not the individual shingle. And obviously, no shingle is expected to live forever. So as long as the shingles, cedar shingles, go back on the outside of the building in the same pattern and probably the same exterior treatment, that seems to me to be an appropriate repair, and it doesn't change the character of the building. Obviously, that vertical line, you've suggested on the plans a couple of places where there would be a vertical board to differentiate new and old, and maybe that's okay, but I don't feel that that's really overwhelmingly important.
Yeah.
Lastly, to go back to the front porch, I too was a little troubled by the fact that we're taking that very symmetric window unit and cutting off one half of it. And I'm wondering why, when I look at the existing plan, why that's really necessary. Why couldn't the entrance be through that same space? That leaves that very important character-defining look alone. I'm not excited about the oval window because I don't see any oval anywhere in this building, but I'm willing to forgive and forget, because that could easily be removed some other day. And children grow up, as you know, I learned when my children grew up. Anyway, those are my main points. I actually think it's a very thoughtful and sensitive architectural answer to many different problems. I like the fact that the peripheral buildings have been removed, so I'm anxious to see the new building.
Thank you, Chair Kohler. I guess my general impressions are that I look what are the impacts of the project to the historic district, and my general conclusions are that it is an enhancement of the historic district and does not detract from it. And I think that's one of the things we're charged with, is looking at what are the impacts of any of these projects upon the historic districts. The feature where you're pulling back from Ramona Street and demolishing the non-conforming addition, I think, is a real enhancement. I looked at the houses on the street there, and this one sticks out much closer to the street than any of the other houses. So it's the front plane of the property. The real property is not anywhere in line with the other houses on the street. So I think by pulling it back the 7 feet is a general improvement and adds to the contextuality with the historic district. And I had a question. What is the design you're being proposed? You have a preferred side elevation where you do not have the flat roof, and then you have like another design option where you have the flat roof. So could you kind of clarify that?
Yes.
What you're asking for?
Sorry, that's not meant to confuse you. I guess there's always a maybe a difference of opinion, or what we want and what's historically correct for the house. There's always more than one solution. So our original solution was to stretch that pyramid, but because we just felt like that was a better roof solution. But coming to the board and talking to the planning staff, we've sort of resolved to the fact that maintaining the pyramid roof is probably the correct choice. We just didn't want to abandon that until we had a chance to present the project, because we're still somewhat interested in stretching that pyramid. But I think what we want to walk away with today, even though we've presented, I guess there's 2 roof options, there's 2 sort of front entry options, but we want to walk away today with obviously an approval so we can move forward, but and having some direction which of these options that we should focus on. Mm-hmm. We don't mean to present it as to confuse it. I guess we just felt like these options were still viable, and were options that the clients were still interested in pursuing. We don't want to, at this point, hold up the progression of the process of doing the project. They've purchased the home. They haven't been able to live in it because they want to do the improvements before they move into it. So we're just wanting to move the project forward at this point. So so we're hoping to walk away with a clear direction of deciphering, even though we've presented alternatives, which alternative to stay focused on.
Yeah. All right, well, I personally think that the preferred option does have some advantages as far as getting rid of the flat roof, which is going to be an issue as far as maintenance and problems in it.
That's what we felt.
The other comment I have deals with what I would term over-embellishment. And over-embellishment I would interpret as the oval windows and the 2 side lights on the front door. Mm-hmm. I think the house, it tends to not add to the house, and the houses on the one on Ramona Street that this is kind of based upon is a rather simple, straightforward house, and I think by over-embellishing it, you detract from the house. So I would not be in favor of those additions. Okay. And the last thing I had a question is, the dormer that is on the roof, what purpose does that serve? Is it like a ventilation dormer?
Yes, that little dormer that's there, it is. That's the attic vent.
Okay, that's where they have a exhaust fan or something up there? Or?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. That's my
So
comment.
it might have been, I think it's always been a vent. it's hard to tell if there was ever a window in it, but it's currently just an attic vent.
Yeah. So I think, in conclusion, I think it does not detract from the historic district. It's a positive improvement, and I think the things that you've done are all additive.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Kohler, and thank you, Margaret, for your presentation. A few comments that will lead to a question for you, please. So I'm starting off by, about 8 weeks ago, I attended the California Preservation Foundation on the 7 aspects of integrity, part of our requirement for our training. It's just one of the seminars that meets that requirement for our annual training. And it talks about the 7 aspects of integrity for historic structures: setting, location, materials, design, workmanship, feeling, and association. The question I'm about to ask you is regarding design and feeling. And in support of my question, I'll be asking, on the design guidelines draft for historic properties that the entire board reviewed, one of the comments here about the idea of differentiation is that the differentiation is achieved when there is perceived visual difference between old and new construction. As I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting for this agenda item, the staff report neglected to say if Standard 9 was compliant, marginally compliant, or non-compliant. The public record doesn't indicate that. Going to your statement of your responses to the Secretary of Interior Standards 9, you state the differentiation in particular is the old materials have 1 coat of paint and the new materials have numerous coats of paint. Any other aspects of your proposed design that how the differentiation requirement is met between old and new?
Yeah, so in arriving at the solution that we've come up with, we've obviously had several revisions and suggestions, and one of the suggestions that came to us in a meeting with Arnold and with Stephen, we talked about that very issue, and we talked about the pyramid roof being a prominent, important feature. I think the original house was more of a square geometry, but a prior owner did that living room and master sitting room addition. So one of the suggestions that Stephen and Arnold had come up with was to uncover that existing corner by pushing back the prior addition, pushing that back 6-8 inches or something like that. We considered that, but it's just not feasible to push a wall back 6 or 8 inches. And then with the shingling, the exterior siding material, the shingling, it just would look, I don't think we would have an effective overall final look. I think people would look at that and not say, oh, that's the original corner. They would look at it and say, wow, the contractor really screwed that up. So that's not what I mean, I think sometimes those theories are great if we could pull them off. If that prior addition didn't already exist, we would absolutely push it back to have that corner revealed, to maintain that corner, because that corner really telescopes up into the geometry of the pyramid roof. We just don't have that opportunity, and I think we just have to accept the fact that this house has been altered. We have to decipher where the value is and where the value is not. So we're obviously removing the areas that don't have any value. We're maintaining the areas that do have the value. We looked at putting a trim board on that corner, but that just looked sort of over embellished and fussy. So I think that maintaining the pyramid roof, I know it does get lost when it transfers into the new roof over the second floor. We've brainstormed and tried to figure out a way to do it, but I think any way that we try to articulate that corner is just going to look like a detail that no one's really going to perceive it that way ever. So I think in this case, the best we can do I know it's been a challenge for us and especially on that Lincoln side elevation. It's been a challenge for us to be able to decipher. And because I don't think our opportunity to decipher really clearly exists anymore because of that prior edition. I think we lost it in that prior edition.
Can you put up the page? There's no page numbers on our packet drawings here. It's that drawing. There's no page number. It's showing the existing site elevation and then the proposed site elevation.
Is that the front?
Okay, my packet has no number. So.
4.0.
Let's see, it's showing the Lincoln Avenue side. On one page, it shows the existing and then proposed.
So this is the existing.
Okay. Okay, so when you look at these side by side.
No, unfortunately. Sam wants to do that.
Okay, all right.
That would be too small, then I can toggle that.
Okay, yeah. So going back to the requirement for the idea of massing and feeling, which is Standard 9 talks about. When I'm looking at this, and again, I'm going to what you were proposing as your response to the differentiation and the feeling. Here's the pyramid roof. And as you mentioned in your presentation, how it gets lost into that. I also heard you say something at the beginning of your presentation about how you looked at working a design where you're actually keeping the separation of that flat roof in through here. And I don't see any proposal about how you incorporated that, your initial idea of working to, I mean, that would be a third roof proposal. And I'm looking for that, what that would look like and how you might handle that. You mentioned it, that you started by looking at that. We don't see anything on that direction. That, I think, helps keeping the feeling of the historic house. And this is a Category 2 house. So that's a pretty significant, excuse me.
I think it's 4. I think that, you know what, I made a mistake on that drawing. It's a Category 4.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's what?
It's a 4.
Oh, the drawing,
Sorry.
okay. It
I'm
says
sorry.
Category 2 on the application.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay.
It's a 4.
It's Category 4. Okay, not Category 2.
I missed that.
Sorry.
My partner here and I were discussing
Yeah.
something.
Okay. According to the drawings prepared by the applicant, it says Category 2.
Oh, but it's 4.
Well, it says both on the front page.
Well, it says both. Okay.
Yeah, get a dart out.
I need to,
Okay.
I need to edit my drawings a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
It says Category 4, and it has the explanation of the Category
Oh,
4 there
okay.
on the, I think, the lower left side.
My suggestion is that Lincoln Avenue elevation is a pretty major elevation. And when I look at the existing historic quality of the house versus the proposal, as the applicant keeps mentioning the pyramidal shape,
Lost.
it gets lost. And that's a pretty major character defining element here.
Yep.
So as we come to, right now we're asking questions for the applicant, and I'll be proposing a motion that addresses my concern about that, how that characteristic quality of this is getting lost. So, okay. Thank you. That's my only questions at this point for the
Okay,
applicant.
so let's see. I haven't been, it's my turn. Are we just asking questions now and then later? Okay, I have to, because I have a solution to all this, but I'll wait.
Roger.
I'm going to, go ahead. What?
Oh, you need a turn.
Yeah, I need a turn. Well, I pretty much agree with everything that's been said, and I don't know that I have a solution to that, but I'm not going to bring that up right now. I think right now we hear from anybody else. I have no cards. Does anybody else like to speak to this item?
Actually, the owners are here, and I think they might like to say a few words, if that's possible.
Okay, well, I'll just kind of summarize it. I'm leaning toward what Martin has said, and I have a suggested solution we'll talk about after we hear from, could you fill out a card, someone, so we can?
Isn't this just
And just briefly, that addition that we're talking about is on the 1924 Sanborn maps. So that addition has had, what, 90 years?
Well, that's a
To
good
be
point.
sitting there. I thought things that could gain historic stature through being there for a while.
Okay, I guess we can, yeah. So,
Board members, if I may briefly address that point. Typically, the way you'd look at that is changes that have occurred during the period of significance for the district could be seen as characteristic of the district. The period of significance for this district would extend approximately through to the 1920s. That would be probably about the end point for this district. So, that I think that is a point of potential discussion among the board members that could be seen as qualifying, but I think also everything that occurs within the period is not necessarily significant as well. So that's a matter of judgment, I think, to the board or of the board. Thank you.
okay, well, I think I'll reserve my comments until we hear from Harry Schmidt, the owner of the site. Thank you.
As you said, my name is Harry Schmidt. I, together with my wife Donna, are the owners of the home. It's our intention, after the proposed modifications are made, to live in the house. We mentioned we have a small child we'll be bringing with us, we hope. There'll be other proposed additions to the family as well. We really see this project as being kind of the capstone on our joining the Palo Alto community as sort of full-fledged members. My wife, Donna, has just taken a position in the Department of Continuing Studies at Stanford. She teaches ancient Greek tragedy. I myself am head of engineering for a small technology startup, which for the foreseeable future will be based in the California Avenue Business District. One of the things I love about this location is that it is actually walking distance from both the California Avenue District and the main business district in downtown Palo Alto. As I think Margaret mentioned, when Donna and I were kind of thinking about how we would sort of become fuller members of the Palo Alto community, we were looking at various places throughout the city, looking at different places that we, that held some interest for us. This house and this district, the Professorville Historic District, really stood out to us. We're both students of, at least of ancient architecture, and the history of the place was significant to us. The nature of the neighborhood, that everyone there is so concerned for the well-being of the homes, and the preservation of what is good about everything that's there, really appealed to us in a very significant way. And it's interesting because basically everyone who's walked into this house, like, who knows about these things, right? Our realtor, our Sam and Margaret have all said this house has good bones, and I didn't know quite what that meant until this process began. And I'll note that this is actually the proposed plans you actually have in front of you are the 8th iteration of a collaboration between Margaret and Sam Benzikar, our general contractor, and the planning committee. Sorry, I beg your pardon, and the staff, who I thank for their, just kind of lending their extraordinary expertise and knowledge of all these things to the project. So what you see is absolutely a compromise that's been taken in the best hope of meeting first of all, meeting the needs that we think the property has as a member of the Professorville Historic District. Second of all, the needs that we will have as a family and growing up in this house. And third of all, kind of putting this house on the footing that it needs to be historic, not just for the 20th century and the 21st, but even further into its future. We hope that collaboration and that compromise that we have worked so hard on will be taken in good earnest. We're very eager to get started, and we can't wait to live in this house one way or the other. So thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Chair, I have a question for the applicant, for the owner. Harry, thank you for your comments, and welcome to City Palo Alto.
Thank you so much.
I too am a student of ancient history and also more contemporary history. And you mentioned how you hope that this project becomes a capstone for what you propose to do for the National Register Historic District of Professorville. On that note, as you may now know, part of the charge for the Historic Resources Board is to measure whatever proposed to any listed historic structure is in a national district, does it conform to the federal guidelines for historic preservation? And that's some of the comments you're starting to hear from the board now. So and that's in respect to the history as we share that common interest. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Another question?
Another question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that the project here is rehabilitation. Rehabilitation, in our context, implies bringing a historic property back into a state of usefulness for modern living. And I think your intentions and plans here completely are in harmony with that objective.
Thank you very much, sir. I very much appreciate that.
Any other questions? Up to you. Oh, I'm asking if anyone has any other questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So much.
So that brings us back to the board. We'll close the public hearing. Thank you. A little rusty on all this.
Board discussion?
Board discussion. Yeah, sure glad I have an assistant here. That's makes things easier. Board discussion. Does anybody want to start out or have anything? I guess I've been looking at this, and I have these two big dogs, and we walk around Professorville fairly often. So I took these pictures, I think, last weekend ago, and walked around and looked at that. And then the house across the street, Ramona, which got totally redone without our board had no idea. The entire inside's been remodeled, all new exterior. I don't know what happened. So it was gutted completely inside down to the studs. And the exterior is all redone. So anyway, the question I have is this is the addition, which as you can see here in this photo, which is a little hard to see from back there, but is actually on its own right, has a defined style and has an more exposed windows for, at that time, was probably fairly unusual in the 1920, you said this was done, the addition? 1924.
On the map.
Yeah, so we have sort of two phases on this home. We have the main home, which you can clearly see the peaked roof, hipped roof, and then the addition on the side. The proposed plan that's blinking on that's blinking up there right now, well, it's going through the whole thing. Suddenly, the main roof line of the home is lost because right now, when you walk by, you can see the hip roof coming to a point, and now we're adding all this off, so the obvious roof line, which is this I've penciled in, gets lost because it's now got a big connection. Whereas over here, so I was initially suggesting that you just keep the main roof and then maybe add the roof over the original addition, but I'm still having second thoughts to whether or not even that's a good idea. I mean, a roof in the back, so I'm sort of torn. Here's Martin, and you can see that sketch there, and this is what I put here, you guys. So anyway, I'd be curious to hear what other board members have to say, because and then changing as Beth has already mentioned, the little greenhouse, cutting it back, as David mentioned, seems a little not exactly appropriate. I'm in fact not even sure when we do a new home, having the front door open into the main living area and dining room is not a preferred first choice. And picking the house up and moving is not a problem. David and I worked on one. I did another one on Bryant, and we remodeled the home in Atherton. The oldest one there was built in 1880. Picked it up, moved it about 50, 60 feet away, built a whole new basement and moved it back. And So it's very doable. So my problem is, as part of the guidelines historic, is that there's a semi-definition between the old and the new. And in this case, we have an addition already done, and now we're doing something more to it, so such that when you walk by, you will not be able to see the peaked roof, because it's going to get buried with this extension, so the angle is going to get lost. So I have a concern about that.
Sure. And then tagging on to Chair Kohler's comments, again, looking at this drawing, again, it's showing the combination of the existing elevation and then the proposed new elevation. In my opinion, and these look like two complete different houses in terms of character. Lincoln Avenue, it's a major exterior elevation of the presentation in the National Historic District. We've got the 7 aspects of integrity, and then the national standards that we as a board must agree to for any motion of approval. Because, I just want to repeat again, the public record is indicating that the differentiation is the number of coats of paint. I suggest that City of Palo Alto cannot allow that to be the public record of differentiation. And I just think that these are not meeting the national standards for differentiation and for compatibility. That's my comment at this point. So.
Beth?
In terms of, to build on what Board Member McKinnon was saying, I feel that the oval window is introducing a feature that could be confused as being historic and clutters what has been a very plain front to that sunroom dormer. So my suggestion would be to omit that. I would muchly prefer the option of keeping the sunroom intact and eliminating the side lights on the door, and if necessary, have it open directly into the house, into the dining room area. If there's any way to work that out, I think that would be a good option, because I do feel that it's questionable in terms of Standard 5 with Secretary of Interior Standards, and I would definitely prefer seeing the as much of the pyramid roof maintained as possible, although the current flat roof over there is a disaster. It is not even square in terms of the beams and how the roof is placed on it, so it would obviously need help along that line. And I agreed with several of Martin's comments.
Excuse me. Oh.
So, in an odd way, the sunroom, that second floor addition that's flat, I found sort of oddly appropriate because it so differentiates itself from the original building. And in a vague way, I found it appealing. But it's not my house, and our job here is to evaluate this project in terms of all of the details that all of us have discussed. So So my issues with the proposed design are the entry. I think, actually, I have a house built in 1923 that enters exactly the way into our living room area, and I was told by a real estate agent that makes it worth less money because you want a formal entry. You know, that's the way houses were built then. I don't have an issue with that, but I do think it would be a better entry into the sunroom on the side, leaving that glass facade alone, than this proposed one. And I certainly agree with others here who have said that the side lights on the entry door seem completely inappropriate. And, you know, I've already mentioned that I don't think the oval window really works. So I was less troubled when I first looked at the project about the roof lines and the lack of a pyramid, but now after this discussion, I think I'm in agreement with the rest of my board members that I don't think this design, this proposed design, or even the alternative really meets the Secretary of Interior's standards. So let's say one other thing. I am embarrassed that we are now, that our last meeting did not have a quorum and we could not make these comments then. It is what it is. But I think this really needs to probably come back to the board with different architecture.
Oh, and will we get a color board?
Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, a question for staff. If the board moves and approves the recommendation to have this come back to us, I guess two options of a motion would be to deny the application or to continue it to a meeting. What's the most convenient thing from an applicant's point of view? Just to continue it to come back with alternative designs, or to vote denial of this application?
It's a little complex because we have two components of the application: the individual review and the home improvement exception. The home improvement exception relates to, you know, the size of the addition. And so I guess typically our approach to single-family homes is we try to get to an approval to the best possible project, and we don't favor, you know, denials. However, you know, certainly to send your strong signal of that this design doesn't work with the Secretary of Interior standards, that's sounding like a clear statement, but denial of the application in its entirety maybe isn't the preferred approach,
So,
as far as we're concerned.
yeah, continue. This will help, I think, address some of the comments that you're hearing the board mention.
Yeah, for future situations, it's always been our, I know we have all new staff, but in the past, we've always encouraged a preliminary meeting prior to doing all the work we've seen here, to a study session on proposals of this scale, to get at least a feeling for the thoughts of the board. It's just, I even think they do that in the ARB as well. And so we're to go through all this and be kind of set and ready is in the future, staff should try to encourage homeowners to do this kind of preliminary review.
Thank you. We'll take that under advisement as far as you know, what's worked in the past and what could work going forward. I think we've been, you know, operating with the changing staff and
Yeah.
not complete staff. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Martin?
Thank you, Chair Kohler. And then on that point that was just discussed, again, in the draft statement of the proposed changes or additions to the family single review, again, the entire board took a look at this, and the statement here is, to assist owners of residential properties in Professorville who are contemplating exterior modifications to new construction, the City of Palo Alto offers a no-fee application study session with the City of Palo Alto HRB to discuss the proposed projects and its consistency with the standards. So the board members have already actually know that that's being proposed, so thanks.
And someday that'll be fully adopted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that. I would say we do, just a comment on that, we don't need to adopt that to be able to say that now, and we could say that on our website, similar to the comment that Chair Kohler made earlier about we should make sure people know the options that are out there. So certainly, as a board policy, if this is what you encourage, then we can pass that message on clearly now.
Some projects, they're, relatively small, but anything of this scope is usually is recommended to come and get at least it feels how we feel about it. And I realize that Arnold and Stephen, who I have now known for 10 or 12 years, are really good folks and are extremely helpful and very talented. However, when it gets to ARB or historic board like this, it should probably have also, if you've met with them, come from that room next door to us and see how we feel about it, and then move forward with everything. I assume we'll have a new room pretty soon at one point, so because it's, I guess well, never mind. Any other comments or? So we have to take a vote and a motion. Is it?
Well, we need a motion first.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But I do want to say very much to the owners that we so much appreciate all the effort that you have put in and your very clear desire to be a part of this community. And I would like to welcome you and say your heart's in the right place.
Yes, good.
I think I'm supposed to do a closing statement before you proceed with your motion.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify that we actually did have those meetings. We had a meeting with Stephen and with Arnold, and it wasn't free, but so we did have that, I think, twice. I think I met with them twice. And that was when I mentioned before about them telling me to move that existing wall back 6 inches, which wasn't really, I mean, I understand the spirit of the idea, but we couldn't make that happen. And then met with Christy and Matt recently, who introduced the sister house across the street, and that's why the plan did change because of that discovery. So I guess what we would like to see is obviously an approval, but I do understand that some of the design elements that have been presented still need some further resolution. So I think what I'm hearing is to keep the pyramid roof, to omit the oval window, to omit the front door side lights, to maintain the sunroom as its current geometry, and possibly, and so that would also have a flat roof over the master bedroom addition on the back. However, when Martin mentioned seeing a flat roof on the front elevation, we hadn't actually drawn that up. But so I guess in light of the schedule and having missed the last hearing, we would like to walk away with maybe not it doesn't sound like a complete approval, but conditions, and we can come back. I don't know if another hearing just because of the holidays, and that might take us to January. I think we're just trying to be expeditious with our proceeding, and maybe if we can just make some revisions and present them, but maybe not as formally. I don't know. We're just open to
there's
expediting.
various ways to do this, and number one, the board, HRB, kind of trumps everybody you mentioned, so, except City Council. So that's why we have always had and we have new staff, which is not as comfortable, but once you went from Arnold and Stephen, you should have said, well, now we have to go to HRB, or come to us first, actually. Because they have different reasons for their approach and approval versus ours and historic side of the board. They're more visual and arranging, how they deal in a different manner rather than historic structures. So that's unfortunate that it happened, and we would love to, what I would suggest you do is just if we have another meeting coming up, just come in with some sketches or something, and don't even do the, the computer.
How can we approve that?
Well, I mean, or you meet with a subcommittee of the HRB. That we don't do a lot of. There's like 3 members would come. We can't do 4, but 3 of us would meet with you, and any one of 3 of us would be happy to do that anytime, either here. Usually we meet here in that room or upstairs at the 5th floor and just review what you're proposing. And we can't guarantee that the entire board would approve it, but you'd have a very good, I think, a good foundation. We've done that for the Chateau home and almost every historic structure, commercial or residential. We've had that little mini meeting, and that's been a good way to go. Yes, David.
So, as I said earlier, I'm cognizant of the fact that we've added 2 weeks to this. The issues that we've raised, except for the roof over the second floor addition, I think are relatively simple. You've already articulated them. Those aren't big design changes. How quickly you think you could bring this back? I think it has to come to the full board. I don't think we can do a subcommittee on this. This is too significant an issue. So if it has to come back to the board, we have a meeting. We could have a meeting on the 17th. That's pretty short. Or we'd have to kick it into January. And then I don't know how much time staff needs in order to evaluate it.
Board members, if I may address that, if the board decides to continue the application, it would really be up to the applicant then to submit materials that would then be reviewed by staff, and there would be a certain timeline for that. So really, the ball would be in the applicant's court, and I'm sure they would want to work as expediently and quickly as possible to get that. I believe the next scheduled meeting that we have would be January 7th. I don't believe we're anticipating to having a December 17th meeting, so it is very possible it could appear on the agenda for January 7th. But again, that would be up to the applicant to follow through with a resubmittal at that point.
So do they have to submit full construction drawings to you, or just the architectural stuff? So they can make architectural changes on the plans without having the underlying structure worked out.
Yes.
And then staff would be able to present this project to us on January 7th? You have enough time to review it?
It does depend on when materials are submitted and our review schedule.
So the day before our meeting, you could take care of that?
Okay, David.
It is possible. Yeah, it is possible.
Mr. Martin has a suggestion and a motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion on this project at 251 Lincoln Avenue, and my motion is to continue this item to a date uncertain. And the reason for making this motion is to come to see the applicant's proposed different design that responds to the concerns about compatibility and differentiation, and in particular the issue that the applicant heard often about the flat roof versus the pyramidal shape there, and keep those items intact. That's my motion.
I'd second that.
So we've had a motion. Is all those in favor?
I have more discussion on my
discussion?
motion, if I may.
Well,
I have more comments.
No one was speaking up, so okay.
Okay. I have more comments to make on the motion before we vote. The aspect of the oval window and also the side lights on the front door, my reaction when I saw the drawing of the side lights, that looked like just an inserted detail rather than a compatible detail for the side lights on the front door. The oval window, I see certainly the advantage of having some natural light into that attic area. So when this comes back, the applicant mentioned even deleting it, but there may be some kind of venting situation that would be compatible. So I'm open to having some natural light into the attic area. Again, I think that's not a major, massive design feature for compatibility and differentiation of the house. So I'm still open to seeing if, so deletion is one option. It could be some other option. And then for the front elevation there, again, that's to me less minor than the issue of the massive roof up on the second floor. But that can be, that's not part of the motion. Thank you.
Any other comments or suggestions? adjustments. There's been a motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That passes with board member, everyone, a member is present, voted yes, 5. Board member
And women.
DeSicio is absent, and board member Rimmer is not accused. Recused, yes. Thank you. Sorry, and we'll move forward on to our next item, which is discussion of potential topics for HRB retreat and joint HRB and City Council meeting in 2015. Yeah, Margaret will join us in a second here, so.
I,
Martin. No, not Martin.
Michael.
Michael.
Michael. Yeah. I have
My
a,
age is showing.
I have a suggestion that comes from Councilman Schmidt when we were interviewed for HRB renomination. He asked me why we were not nominating some of the historic industrial buildings that are in Palo Alto, such as the Fairchild semiconductor facility. And I told him that the way that the HRB operates is more reactive than proactive, that we respond to packages that are given to us rather than going out and with a wider net and trying to capture new ideas. And I told him that he's perfectly correct. We should be looking at some of the historic industrial buildings and getting them nominated. So I would like to put that top of the list.
This is something that can, the staff can do in their spare time. Yeah, I mean, I'm fully in support of that idea. I see in my limited tenure on this board, which is 7 years now, I'm the second youngest member. I don't know of any mechanism to do that. Is there something in the ordinance, Historic Resources Ordinance, that allows us to do this? Do we, as single board members, do it? I mean,
Yes, board members, thank you. Under the ordinance, any party may submit an application to have a property listed under the inventory, in the local inventory. Those parties could include board members themselves. However, if a board member were to actually submit that application, they would have to recuse themselves from the deliberations. But I would say also that in my experience, for instance, in San Francisco, the historic board there has a landmarks work program where they actually have a list of properties of interest that they believe should be considered for nomination. And they've asked staff to sort of work through that list, and they prioritize the list every year. And essentially in staff's spare time, they do work through that list and present nominations to the board that are then forwarded to the council. So that's one option that the board could consider initiating or asking staff to initiate.
so if,
Be allowed to pass you some research?
Oh, absolutely. That would be certainly a proper function of the board members would be to assist in the research and provide any information or perspective that would be helpful in evaluating potential resources.
so what's the threshold that we would cross as board members that would require that we recuse ourselves? If making a suggestion, I presume, does not reach that level?
I don't believe it would. I think we would probably want to talk this over with the city attorney to determine that proper mechanism, given that the ordinance does allow for any party to submit the application, but then we do have to be cognizant of conflicting interests. So, under what mechanism can the board initiate these potential nominations and then have staff do the actual work? I think we could talk to the city attorney about how that would actually mechanically work.
And your department has funding to do this? And you have excess time that can be, I mean, I think this is a great idea, but I think this, unless you get staff time that's funded to do this, which I'm all for, this is a fool's errand, frankly.
Here's another twist on that. There's a lot of folks here in town who are very, very interested in historic structures and historic period, that if there is some system out there that like any number of people might be interested in one building, they might be able to provide enough data that it can just come before the board without a whole lot of staff input.
Staff would still have to vet it, and then take, for example, the Palo Alto Little League site, which we just reviewed, where an individual brought to the board a well-researched but flawed proposal to give that property landmark some kind of historic status, and the owners absolutely did not want it, and that's the end of the discussion. So, you know, if you get people that want to have our board consider properties for historic designation, then I don't even know what that means really, because most people are afraid of it. You first have to get the owner to come on board. So typically, it's the owners of the properties that come to us asking for some kind of historic designation so that they can take advantage of the benefits, as in the Women's Club on Homer that we just, in the same meeting we approved. So,
Martin?
Can staff answer the question, or maybe it's a city attorney question? If an owner of a property says, I do not want my property to be historic, is that the end of it? Yeah.
Hi, I'd like to address that.
Yeah.
So as you'd mentioned, the Palo Alto Little League ball field had come forward against the property owner's wishes, which in the state and federal arena is their practice is to not list it against with those objections of the owner. And so we made that statement to the council and to you as well. And I think it's not in our code, anything about that, it's silent as to that. But I think some saw that as a best practice. What I'd like to say is this conversation is excellent and is interesting to all of us here, staff in particular, because we do see many buildings come forward that are of a certain age, 50 or so years. And so we're dealing with that on a case-by-case basis. And for a major project, we often have, an expert, historic architect prepare a report so we can analyze it in the CEQA arena for one of these major projects. But we would like, staff would certainly like to have the universe and to understand, the city's, there's research park district potential, in the future. There could be several areas that are districts. We would like to have a better understanding of that. Matt has experience in this area. What I'd suggest is that we consider having a retreat to have a discussion, because there's a lot of discussion around this that we're not really prepared today to handle. But if that sounds good to you, then we can have at least a preliminary discussion in a retreat situation.
I think it's a great idea. Do we have a date yet for the joint HRB City Council meeting in 2015, or still being decided?
I have not heard of the date. Yeah,
Okay.
I would think the city clerk's office will contact the chair and the liaison, one of us, to let us know when that is, and we'll let you know if
Yeah. As Amy just mentioned, I think, that's a great topic for us, either for retreat and then in preparation for city council conversation about that question.
Yeah, we can do that. We have, they have been very interesting meetings with city council.
Okay.
We get in there, we have all our
And
speeches, and
yeah.
we never get to say anything.
And when you're ready, Chair.
It's literally true. The city council members just end up talking about all the stuff they want to talk about and never really ask us anything. It's just one of the strangest things I've been, so, okay.
Chair Quill, I have another subject I'd like to bring up for that item number 2 for potential topics when you're ready. So.
Okay.
Well, my suggestion was motivated by council, so I take that as being
Yes.
pretty high priority.
Yep, good. what was your other
Okay, and
suggestion?
then my other suggestion for a topic for HRB retreat and joint HRB city council meeting is to change the number of categories from 4 categories to 1 category. And specifically, there would be a category called historic or non-historic. And if it's historic, then all the other aspects of our ordinance fall right into place. And my purpose of that suggestion is just to simplify for any potential applicants. Instead of saying, I mean, we've heard applicants come before us saying, well, I have a category 2 or 3, and maybe there's some it's clear what's the difference between a 3 and a 4. What's the difference between a 1 and a 2 or 2 and a 3, and what applies?
no,
All that. So simplicity is, I think, from the public's point of view, I think that would be an enhancement of our goal without diluting any of the historic preservation ordinances that are in effect.
I think that's a good idea, because when I first came on the board, 20 years ago, the categories of 1, 2, 3, and 4 probably made a lot of sense, because there were obviously homes that were well more historic than others, and so there was categories. But now, all the homes now are mostly 100 years old, or very close to it. And so in that sense, they're all historic. So I would support that program. Go ahead, Matt.
Board members, if I may just briefly address that. Under some other regulations, for instance, the California Environmental Quality Act, it really is a lot more simpler than that. It is historic or non-historic. At the federal and local levels, there's often a differentiation between an individual landmark versus a contributor, and there's some relationship in the code. 1s and 2s essentially relate to those individuals, 3s and 4s relate to contributors. I think it is important to maintain the distinction between individual landmark and contributor, because it does indicate a differentiation. It would seem to me that where the category system really comes into the play is 1, 2s, 3s, and 4s is in other areas of the code that talk about potential incentives that might be available to development incentives or transfer of development rights, and also the review processes that apply to certain properties in certain locations. So I think one thing that we need to do as staff to sort of provide information to the board on this particular issue is go through the code and identify all those areas that could be affected by consolidating the categories essentially, and how those code areas would need to be updated or addressed to fit into that.
I anticipate that would happen, and there'd probably be some modifications. So in the goal of simplicity of what to do for historic preservation, I was anticipating, there's a lot of nuances between 1, 2s, 3s, and 4s that the code specifically addresses. So I was anticipating, there might have to be then some, if we want to go toward instead of 4 categories to 1 or some other number, I'm anticipating how do you massage that so that the overall idea is, from the public's point of view, is simplicity to help us make it more clear to any applicant. I think that then everyone benefits in that. So, thank you.
Let's see.
And one further suggestion might be just in terms of the general number of times that we're getting requests to move historic buildings, that maybe some guidelines in terms of moving might be very important, because some days it feels like all our historic buildings ought to be on wheels so they can just match the newest owner's wishes. So some thought about that.
And that issue of moving a building is also addressed in the draft guidelines that we reviewed too. It talks about that. And again, I will suggest in response to that each project is an individual basis. Yes, it can have a cumulative effect, but I think the board's going to be very aware of cumulative effects. But some movements actually may improve properties too. Yes, but thank you. Correct.
It's coming up a lot.
Okay. Well, it's almost 11 o'clock,
We've
so,
already moved into number 2, seems to me. Discussion of potential topic.
yeah, we just talked
This
about
this has all been number 2, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I have a couple of things I'd like to add to that,
Okay.
just briefly. I too share Martin's interest in having simpler historic categories. I think we need more than one, and I like your suggestion that there be like a landmark status and then some kind of contributing status, so that there's a distinction between the Squire House and MacArthur Park building and, say, my house, which it was a number 4 category, but probably doesn't really deserve that. I think we also need to develop a Mills Act incentive. I've been taking pictures of the 20s bungalows, the 2 and 3 bedroom projects in the city that are inevitably sold, torn down, and a new giant modern house shows up. I don't foresee a way to prevent that as long as the property values continue to skyrocket. And the only way you could offset that is to provide some incentive that would give the people who own those properties an opportunity to enjoy the increase in property values without having to destroy the buildings that sit there. And San Francisco does have an option. I mean, they do have a program. It's a limited Mills Act thing. You know much more about than I do. I only know about it through my daughter's building in the Liberty Hill Historic District in San Francisco. I do also think that as a city, we ought to have a brief historic consultation with all the construction people that work on our projects, the buildings that we approve, because as I've mentioned in past meetings, in a project I participated in a sensitive wildlife area, we were required to brief each construction crew as it came on site, and it was a really quick 5-minute review of what the issues were about the particular site. We had absolutely no trouble, and while there was an initial kind of pushback on it, eventually they all got into it. And so we were all looking for the yellow-tailed lizard that was not there. But,
Or the historic fabric in our.
well, exactly. And the construction people, I know this from my experience, they don't see fabric the same way we do. They see it as just something that old stuff that you tear out and get rid of. And that's why we have these problems. That's why, we had that project of 546 University, or 64, I can't remember, that for 2 years sat there because they took it apart. I think that's a simple thing. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, and I think you'll have huge benefits. It seems to me that the flip side of Michael's experience with council interview is that it's time for the city council to update the historic ordinances here. It's 1990s ordinance? I think we've actually moved on, and there's a changed environment in the last 25 years. And it needs a council directive, and it needs updating. And maybe their directive is to have us look at it, staff first, and then the board. That's fine. Also, I think they ought to adopt the Professorville design guidelines, which have been vetted. We can always use them here, but they ought to become part of the nomenclature of any review. So those would be things that I think we could propose to the council in our joint meeting, or also review in.
I think when we do have a date that each board member or group should maybe submit a list of what questions they might like to have, and then we'll see how many are common requests, and maybe 2 or 3 of us can go and make a list. As I said, in experience in the past, it's the council's members just sort of take over the whole meeting, and we've, I think I did a slideshow once, and then after that, they ended up just talking about random stuff. So I don't know how it's going to go, but we can do our best. So.
If I can participate for a moment. So the standard is obviously the chair and vice chair meet with the mayor and vice mayor prior to the meeting, the joint meeting. That has been typical for ARB at least, that we coordinate.
You're talking two different worlds.
Okay. Well,
We typically have met, you know, we have a meeting and we sort of suggest some items, and usually, I don't know if, even when I was mayor, chairman in the past, I had never met, well, we seldom have had this meeting, which is
Okay.
part of my point, so.
So here's two things I suggest. Number one, we look to try to get a full quorum of HRB members for January 21st, which is the second meeting of January. And we target that date, which should be before your council joint meeting, to have a full discussion of the items that we just, you know, jotted down today, as well as, you know, the status of the Professorville guidelines and, you know, where that is. I'm writing a report about that currently. And we use that opportunity to really get focused on, you know, what the mission is, what the possibility of things we might do, you know, with a consultant, if that were something we could look into, getting some funding in the budget for. I don't think it's too late to get something in the mid-year budget if, you know, if it was raised to the council level, the importance of such a study. So I'll just say maybe we can all look at our calendars and see if that's a possibility to have a retreat on that date.
I'm, on the 21st of January, I'm traveling back here, but after a week out of town, so I won't be available. But that's a Wednesday. I mean, we don't have to do it on a Wednesday.
Right, that's just a normal HRB date. I mean, normal, it's on our calendar as an HRB date. So I thought I'd start with that because that should be on all of your calendars as an HRB date. But we can certainly look to a different day for a retreat. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I will coordinate with you and Vice Chair, is that you? You're going to be gone. Michael, right. Okay. Does anybody else have any other things they want to talk about? Because we should probably move along. We've been here.
Well, there's one other topic. I hate to even mention the word, but enforcement of historic, the edicts that we come up with.
Yeah.
Some type of method of enforcement. You know, some ideas that come to my mind, if somebody's a gross violator, they should be suspended from getting permits for 6 months or some period of time. So they don't work here.
Well, that's a good topic. So.
There's obviously a flagrant disregard for this. They just pay the penalty and $1,000 or whatever it is, and
Yeah,
So you're thinking this would be for the council, a discussion with council?
maybe they can be suspended from work.
Board Member Bauer has been suggesting for as long as he's been on the board that there be a sheet that, you know, 24 by 36 sheet says historic board requirements. Your site has been determined to be historic. It's gone through the review of the Historic Resources Board. Here are the items you are required to do. We have a Protect Our Tree page. We have all these separate pages. And it's something David's been asking for many, many years. And it's a pretty simple thing to have a standard sheet that says, or if there's been an approval by the HRB, that gets printed and it's part of this, just like the Title 24 page. You have that page. It's so in big letters, please read. There are really a large group of contractors who will do a very good job without that page. And then there's a fairly modestly large group who couldn't care less. So that's who we're after. Yeah. Martin.
Continue on this question about enforcement. I was going to ask that question on the previous project that we reviewed this morning. One of the proposed attachment B conditions of approval is number 12, a planning division final inspection will be required to determine substantial compliance with the approved plans. And then that will lead my question during our study session or our retreat. If it's deemed by the planning division that it's not compliant, what happens? And that's the enforcement issue. Yeah.
And what is substantial? What does the word substantial mean?
Well, that's a common phrase. but,
Okay.
yeah.
Actually, there is a clearly defined a statement about substantial completion of a construction project in state law.
Yeah, correct, I agree.
And I think that rather than create another statement, I think you just piggyback onto that. So it's about intent. It's not about whether, the
Exactly.
shingles were spaced 1/16 of an inch apart instead of an 1/8 of an inch,
Right.
but it's so we don't need to go there.
Yeah.
That's so far down in the weeds.
Yeah, I think the word is substantial conformance, not substantial
Well,
compliance.
substantial
yeah.
completion is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
definition, but
I
you
agree.
could piggyback on that.
I'm ready to go home. Is everybody else? Anything else, or what's up?
Just a couple housekeeping items. We've noted that there will not be a meeting December 17th. It's canceled. We don't have any applications.
Good idea.
For the January 7th meeting, we do have one very important housekeeping item that we'll need to do. That will be the review of the annual CLG report. So staff will provide all the board members with that report prior to the meeting. And the process is the board reviews the report, provides any corrections or additions that are necessary, and then that is due to OHP by January 12th. So staff will then submit that. With that report, we do need the statement of qualifications form that has been given to almost all of you, and I do have one for Martin as well as Margaret. And then with that, we also need resumes from each of the board members as well. So if you could please submit a resume to staff either before the meeting or at the next January 7th meeting, that would be very helpful. And then all the material then goes up to the state just for their files and their record keeping.
Please note that the deputy city clerk already solicited resumes.
Oh, okay. Perhaps maybe I'll just go to the city clerk and see if I can get copies of those resumes.
You mean for those who are who reapplied?
We all did.
Oh, you all?
Prior to that.
I think
That's a good point.
this fall, they asked for resumes from all of us for some kind of website. I guess it is a website thing. I can send mine again. It's not a big deal.
I have no memory of that.
So we do have,
No
we do
memory, just
have,
stop right
What's your name? That's basically where I am these days. I can't remember.
we do have biographies of most of the board members on the website, but I don't believe we have Roger's, and I don't believe we have a couple
Biography?
others.
He
So,
doesn't have a biography.
It's pretty
so I
thick.
wonder if that's the resume is maybe that information. But we'll check with the city clerk, and if there's any that we don't have, we'll follow up with you individually.
And Diana also has some information. I think we
Great.
Ooh.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
How many?
Request denied.
How many of you can say, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is, I don't know why it's here. I thought it was.
For more information, please visit artsearth.org.